keeping the same distance away. So if you want to move, just move it around with you.
All right, sounds good.
You're, I believe, episode 53 of the Life Unraveled series, Danielle Housenick. All right, we're recording. So it's so funny. Everybody has misconceptions. Like Bobby was, everybody I talked to, like after the podcast, that mic's coming out a little bit weird. Hold on. Just noticed that. Okay, we're good. But everybody is like, oh my, like even Corey's like, what do I have to talk about? And I'm like, how about running like the most successful small business in town? Like, you could talk about that, but everybody, like, doesn't matter who they are or what they have going on. They're like, I'm an imposter. I could never be on a podcast. But I don't ask uninteresting people to come on a podcast either. Sure. Right. But honestly, like, I don't think there maybe are. I could learn something from anybody. There aren't a ton of interesting people. Like, I think like every podcast, like, sit down with this head or this mind, this PhD. I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to normal people too that are just like,
right, people that are just everyday people.
Because that's all we are.
That is all we are.
And then there's a whole sect of people that pretend they have it all figured out.
Absolutely. And there's a whole sect of people who think they know everything and can't learn anything. And those are the kind of people that drive me crazy.
I've just been trying to read more and do all sorts of activities to get me not, I don't know. You just have to force yourself to keep learning. I felt like I would hit this phase even as an adult where I was like, I just wasn't, and then I got back, and when I started teaching, that's when I really got back into like rapid learning every day. It's
absolutely
awesome.
And see, that's so that's one of the things I actually love about this job is that I'm learning something new pretty much every day.
Is work different every time you go in?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you like that?
I love it.
I do too. That's what I liked about like the difference in contrast, like the historian job versus entrepreneur. Like that's a big transition. Like, even though it's a low key, not as many hours a week as maybe you or a full-time person works, but it's like it's the structure, the difference. It's so weird.
Yeah. That's something that I think I would always have to have in a job to actually be happy, is to keep learning. And I think that's part of the reason that I also love teaching. And
Are you still adjuncting?
Not right now. I adjuncted a class at Tech last semester. It was actually an interdisciplinary class, so it was right in line with my job. So I actually had like 4 political science students, but I also had criminal justice, geography, wildlife and fisheries.
We don't even offer a criminal justice class right now, or geography, or psychology, or not psychology, philosophy. Right. And I'm just like, oh. Did you apply? Because we just hired like 2 English people. Did you apply for that or no? You already had your other job. Would you have been interested if timing would have worked out?
If timing would have worked out differently, yes. Although I'm kind of glad I'm just happy I am where I am. You know, I have the support of people in the community, and I have the support of like our board of directors and everything. And, you know, they're pretty much like, when I got this job, they were like, you don't have to just do what everybody before you did. Make it your own. And so I'm having a blast with that.
How is this set up? Like, how does this all work? How does the nonprofit work in terms of paying you salary and all that? Like, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure how to answer that.
Well, okay, so that's like you have a board, because like I mean, like we with our is it a 501c3?
Yes,
okay, so with ours, like we just never pay anybody.
Right.
We have a lot of money. We spend it on boxing memberships for equipment, and we get donations every year from like nice patrons. But man, like, so you write grants.
Yes.
Have you had any grants other than the one you were recently promoting for the concert?
Yes. So we got a grant actually, I can think of 3. We get a lot of support from the state. So Main Street is like a national movement, a national program. So there is a national Main Street, and then there's Main Street, Arkansas. And then under that, there's, you know, other programs. So not every town or city is a Main Street town or city.
I didn't know that it was a brand or whatever.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's like federal, state, and local, basically.
Basically. Wow. And, you know, there's certain things we have to do to be accredited. And there's like, you know, we get training, and it's interesting because everybody is so different. Like, what works for us isn't necessarily going to work in like Siloam Springs or Fort Smith, or, you know, it's like, so it's interesting the kind of things that you learn, because there's sort of like, I don't know, it's like a baseline, it's like a guideline, and then you have to take it and make it work for you.
Do you think that, well, what's the approach here? Do you just kind of like look at what a lot of other people are doing and be like, I like that word, what do you think? Or how do you get ideas?
Sometimes yes. You know, I do a lot of the things that we have done in the past. I'm coming right up on being there for 1 year. And so, you know,
I didn't think it'd been that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so part of this year was like, just don't drown, just keep my head above water.
What kind of hours you working? Just like a 9 to 5 type of a deal?
Pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of times when I have to be there in the evening.
Community events or just meetings and stuff?
Mostly community events, sometimes meetings.
So are you kind of overseer of like that stage and that area and everything, like all of that? The depot, I once did an armbar on that man out there, the statue.
Oh, and the conductor.
Yeah, fine armbar, right?
Okay, well, you want to know what's really funny is, so I feel like, you know me. You've known me for a while, right? Like, I'm a nice person.
Yes.
Right? I'm a nice person until you cross me. And so this past year, of course, I had a few people who have... Am I allowed to swear?
All the time. Okay. This is, hey, well, we can't, we can't say the C word.
Oh, what?
Like the CU word.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, so check this out. YouTube has an algorithm, an audio algorithm, or I don't know if it's a program. I don't know how they do it, but they can scan, like when I upload it, they can scan and be like, at 2 hours in, your guest said the C word, and you're never making money on this podcast. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
Yeah, but there's there's some words that they've flagged as like ardent hate speech, no matter what, and you so you can't monetize that. And also now all my YouTube uploads, I have to say whether it's kid friendly for the same reasons.
Well, I mean, that's, you know,
it makes sense. I wish I could just like go through, like I had to go through and like change that for all of my previous episodes, which were like, you know, like 100 episodes. Right. Weird. But yeah, I swear.
Okay, so anyway, so I've dealt with a lot of shit from, you know, and the funniest thing about it is that every single person who has given me shit and given me drama has been a guy. And yeah, I've had some of them. I think they just go, oh, well, she's a really nice girl. And,
is it business owners? Is it politicians?
It's a little bit of everything. It really is. And what's really funny is that they will, they'll unload on me and yell at me and everything else, and then they call someone else who they think has more power than me, and that person happens to be a man, and they talk to them just so completely differently, like, you know, well, I just, yes, I understand, yes, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, and,
but when I said it, it was...
Yeah, it wasn't true when I said it, but when he said it, it's okay.
I was talking with, like, Aaron Clare about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've become, like, way more empathetic to that stuff since I was about 28 years old. I don't know why, but that's just when I started, like, I realized that there was a system in place. Right. And I was like, holy shit. Like... Because I just said this yesterday on the podcast or whenever I was talking to Aaron, but like at one point in time we like deified women, like, and then they got suppressed, and it's like, oh, what? And actually, another reason I want to have you and like I had Kristen on, Tosh Nandivada's coming on, Aaron came on. It's just like I was like, being a stereotypical dude, only podcast is like a sausage party up in here, like just podcasting with a bunch of other dudes.
Yeah,
and it's so easy to do that. That's like the norm, you know. Right? Oh, I would never talk to women, you know, like, but it's like I need to if I really want to have that empathy that I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And it's so strange because, you know, that's one of the things that I take away every day is I don't know what anybody is going through in their life. Like, I don't know why you are yelling at me. Maybe it's something that happened to you in your childhood. Who knows? But I think that a lot of people don't have that level of empathy, basically, to say, well, you know, how am I making that person feel when I scream at them?
What kind of issues are people usually bringing up? Like, they just don't, like, you're just new and they have to kind of deal with you for certain things, or like, what's the weirdest sort of thing you run into?
I think a lot of people, some people misunderstand my job. So back to the Main Street thing a little bit. We have what we refer to as the 4-point approach. And so we pay attention to 4 different areas consistently so that, there's kind of like an equal amount of growth, sort of, right? So that's design, which is like our historic downtown, architecture, even streetscapes, things like that, right? So it looks nice. Promotion, which is promoting downtown. So
do you have a budget for that?
Well,
for advertising, stuff like that?
Well, yes. But see, and that's where it gets kind of confusing. Promotion's not just advertising. So, for example, a lot of our events fall under promotion. So when we have the concerts and we have 1,000 people down there, we're promoting downtown, Yeah.
Almost like
thinking outside the box.
Yeah, walk by traffic, basically.
Absolutely.
Like you're like a storefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just like, hey, come to this one store, or hey, come to, it's like, hey, come down here because this place is awesome. It's kind of like promoting the whole community, really, in the area. So promotion, design, economic vitality, which is, of course, just, getting people to
looks better than it used to.
Right. Yes. I know. We are at almost 100% occupancy downtown.
Wow.
Of available spaces. I mean, there are some that are sitting there that aren't for rent, and those are a thorn in my side. But for the most part, almost everything that can be rented out right now is rented out, which is amazing. Does
the city own a lot of those, and they get the revenues? All individuals that own it?
Most of them are individuals. So we have, sometimes you'll have what you refer to as an absentee owner, which is somebody who doesn't live here, but maybe like their family lives here or lived here at one time, and so they own it. And because they don't see it every day, they're not really thinking like, oh wow, I really need to do something with that place. I don't know why people don't rent it out. Because to me, it's not making you any money just sitting there. In fact, quite the opposite. It's probably deteriorating.
Well, and you got to pay property tax. And
Absolutely. So I, but that's one of the things that's beyond my control. That's, I got to work on that. An organization, that's the last point.
Is that just like your logistics?
Basically, yeah. Like the fact that, I'm part of the organization. We have a board, committees,
Structure.
One of the things that I like to do, and I'm trying to do as much as I can, is work with other organizations. So
business networking, even if that's not what you call it in your situation, but networking with other businesses is so important. I saw some chiropractic place doing something the other day, and I was like, that is so creative.
Right?
It was something like, hey, if you go to this business, and I don't even remember where it was, maybe it was like the CrossFit place or something, but they're like, if you say this, you get this.
Right.
Or say you came here. I was like, man, that is such a unique way for those two businesses to network. I bet they're friends or something.
Right. Well, and so, okay, think about Dr. Claire. You were talking about her. She's one of my idols, by the way. So anyway, she's a roller derby girl.
We talked about that on the podcast.
And so at each of the concerts this summer, we had the roller derby girls down there skating around. They had a big water cooler jug and took it around. People gave them donations. The donations came back to us, but it was like a PR thing for them and a community service thing for them. And then people got to see oh wow,
maybe I want to be a roller derby. Yeah.
And they had some kids out there that were tearing it up. I was so proud.
Have you done derby?
I have not.
Okay, I couldn't remember if you had. Several people I know have.
I know.
Erin Claire, you remember she used to work at the history department. Her name was Courtney Alverson. So like a little redheaded girl. She did derby. Different Danielle. Danielle Gray. Yeah. She's come to the gym. She works for I think the water department. Anyway, she does derby here in Russellville, and her name's Danielle. And
that's awesome.
You guys have similar length hair and all sorts of stuff.
She's way awesome. So anyway, back to me being a badass. Is that what we were talking about? People yelling.
You gotta whip them back in place, keep them in line.
Yeah. So like I said, I think people look at me and they're like, "Oh, look at that nice little girl," and then I'm just like, "Whatcha? I don't think so. You're not gonna do that." So there have been. I did actually demonstrate a rear naked choke to somebody one time.
Did you choke them unconscious?
Just about.
Kim Claus did that to somebody one time.
Really? On purpose?
Well, he asked her to do it.
Okay.
And then she did it, and then he like fell face forward out of his chair after she did it.
Because people look at Kim and go, "Oh, look at that cute little girl. There's no way she could." Yeah, she can. And that's
isn't that such a like for example, Cora?
Yeah.
Like people look at Cora and it's just like, oh no. Like I always tell my college students, because they're like, you do martial arts? I was like, yeah, but my wife will kill everybody in this room. I'm not allowed to hurt you people or talk about it, but my wife, she'll kill you all.
Yep.
And they're just like, okay. But honestly, that is one of the things that made me like training Cora, training Evelyn, Asia, seeing... Like, honestly, some of my most successful competitors I've ever been a part of coaching have been women.
Yeah.
And to see, like, their drive and how much they want it and the difference in, like, their like, you tell them something, they're like, I see what you're saying. And some guys will be like, I don't know. It's just weird. There is a difference, and I hate to stereotype, but there is. Like, I've coached a lot of both.
Right.
And those 3 people I mentioned were just like the proof in the pudding of like, I don't know if it's guys have more of an ego or if it's more of a...
I feel like women, we feel like we have more to prove sometimes because people do underestimate us. So... Yeah. I mentioned to somebody about using a box cutter, and they were like, oh, were you slitting somebody's throat? So apparently I'm scary.
See, and 2, here's the funny thing. I guarantee you the person who made that joke doesn't know the proper way to slit a throat. Right? Here's the thing. In Vietnam, I tell this story a lot. A guy cut off 3 of his fingers, killing a sentry. He like came around, covered his mouth, and not the desired result. So actually what they teach you to do in like SF and military training is to go in the neck and punch out. You don't do this. You go.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like that. You stick it like here.
Right.
And come out. Yeah. Sorry for the neck slitting tutorial.
Well, I mean, it's okay. Now I know. So.
Yeah, now you know how.
Yeah, now I will be.
Well, that's just it. Is just like I try and approach it like everybody got something to learn. Like there's no like, oh, Danielle never used a box cutter. Like, isn't that just such a petty thing to like stereotype with though? To be like, oh, men have the patent on this, or whatever it is. It's like. I see that stuff now for what it is, in like snide remarks and stuff like that. It's demeaning.
Yeah. Well, in that case, it was a joke.
It was okay.
It can be. But if it had been somebody who, yeah. So I know it's like you can't do that because you're a woman or whatever. One of my favorite things, going back to women in martial arts, one of my favorite things to brag on is, of course, my girls. All the time, I'm like, my 2nd grade girl. Which she's in 3rd grade now, but when she was in 2nd grade, choked out a 4th grade boy. So
she's a holy terror.
She is a maniac.
Yes.
I mean, and even when we went to the pediatrician, oh my gosh, he's just like, she even has the perfect build for that. He's like, she's just like wiry and all muscle. And yeah, I mean, she will just, and I love that because again, she's just the sweetest little girl. And, she loves dragons and the color pink, and by the way, she will choke you out, so
and that's awesome. Like, I just love getting to be a part of providing that for little girls. Like, I think this is something that really bothers me. Like I had a student last semester, and Cora has dealt with this recently, like that was like, hey, I have a stalker and I have to go to court to testify against them on this day, and there's no way I can't not go, or it's never going to go away. So I'm talking to you and my other instructor about this, and I was just like, oh, my wife's going through that same thing right now. Like, some guy has put stuff in our mailbox at the gym, has come in the gym multiple times, like we've called the cops on him twice, like all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? I'm never ever gonna have to deal with that.
Right.
I'm never gonna have to, like, I'm not worried about getting raped. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's such that dichotomy is one of the most bothersome to me, because when she was telling me that, I was like, I had a extreme care for the situation, because I was like, That's just so like no male student will ever come talk to me about this, essentially, you know. And it's just like to see the differences and how like women are objectified and like, oh, you, and then to also see the places that you have been guilty of that as a man.
Right. I know. And you don't even, maybe you didn't think anything of it, but so whenever I started going back to school and I was doing my master's classes, I did like one at a time, and it was mostly night classes. Well, I had a male professor who I still admire and am friends with, but, he mentioned something about how a student had approached him at one point and mentioned like, well, when are we going to be done? I have to walk to my car after this. It's dark. And he's like, I never, ever in my life. And this is like intelligent grown person, grown man. He's like, I didn't really think about that. Like the fact that women have to walk, and everybody knows what time your classes get out and different things like that. But it just, that right there was like,
well, and there's been incidents. Yeah. Like Kristen yesterday was calling Bonadilla the rape forest.
Oh my gosh, that place is, and I don't get me started. I don't understand. I've not heard of anything like that happening there.
Yeah, well, a lot of creepy incidences, break-ins. Cora had her window broke in 6 months ago. So many people have done that. So many people have had people break into their car at Bonadilla, and I'm like, why can't we do something about, like, it seems like, okay, this is the, like, let's fix this. Well, you know what Clarksville did is they took a guy that was either a game warden or they made him law enforcement or one or the other. His name was Frankie Tucker. I think he retired, but he's a game warden forever. When I was a kid, because he got attacked by a monkey in Scranton, Arkansas. They escaped a zoo, and the monkey beat the shit out of him. But that was like the big joke. Like, he couldn't escape that story anywhere he went. And he went to my cousin's church, and he would always come to church in like full uniform with a gun on, and everybody hated that. But Clarksville has... I used to live downtown kind of by the courthouse and stuff, and they have all of these nature trails, which now go from like where Wendy's is to the school, and it's nice. But so what they did is they put a full-time patrol on them. Mm-hmm. And I think that as many trails as Russellville's having and we are desiring to create, just putting somebody on a bike or anything that's like, you ride the trail 4 times a day. Right. You pick up trash or you just keep an eye out, whatever, and trail cams. We don't. I just feel like we're not doing any of that right now.
I know. Well, that's what I couldn't understand. Like at Bonadilla, I still don't. Why don't we just put up some cameras? That would like solve the problem so easily. Put up some cameras. As soon as someone goes, oh wait, I'm on camera while I'm breaking into. Maybe it'll deter some people.
Well, and here's another thing about it. Because Cora and I are going to do full surveillance at the new gym, and we're going to piggyback it here at the house too. But unless you install a server, it's going to be like the shittiest image, especially being like an outside camera. Because like it's funny, I see joking memes about it. It's like NASA's views of Saturn's rings from space or whatever, and then it's like, have you seen this man? It's like some dude in black and white, like with like, you can't make out anything. But the thing is you have to dump that footage on like a server that has an endless storage basically, right. And you wipe it every month or something. And people don't want to do that maintenance. I guarantee you the city don't want to do that maintenance.
I don't know, but it just seems to me like, where are the priorities, right? I don't know. We
won't get into that.
No, we won't.
We agreed we would not talk about that.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
Well, so you're liking your job, though.
I love my job. And the very best thing about it, I think, I say this all the time, like, we have the most amazing people here. Most amazing people. Like, Josh McMillan, I've known him
He's great.
Yeah, I've known him off and on for a long time, but Fall Fest. Biggest event I ever dealt with in my entire life. Absolute, just, oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even tell. It was so much work. He doesn't work for the city. He works for Arkansas Tech. He showed up. I mean, he was there. He came to every planning meeting beforehand. He came, I guess it was the night before when I was like ready to lose my mind. And I said, hey, what do your, because he brings students that volunteer. And I said, what do your students need? Do they need a list? Do they need maps? And he said, well, I knew that you were really busy. And so this is what I did. And he pulls out all the information that he made up for the students. And I'm like, that's amazing. And then I talked to him about another concern. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what. He said, you just do what you need to do and I'll take care of that. The day of the event, he was there for at least 12 hours.
I talked to him. I talked to him on the tail end. I came in like after lunch when like the cook-off was over and a bunch of people were leaving and packing up. And he was coordinating like, hey, go out this way. Hey, you kids, go over here. Because there's a bunch of international students and stuff working with him. And he was just joking with them too.
Oh, but he was amazing. I asked him who he reports to, and I wrote them a letter just telling them like how above and beyond and how that's like an asset to tech.
He does that for the community. Yeah. He does that for the gym. Yeah. And he does that for tech.
Yeah.
Like if tech's got a basketball game or a football game, like he's making an appearance. Yeah. And he helps with his kids, like Chris helps with Meow Meow. That's what we call her. Mallory helps with her class. Yeah. Teaches Project Warrior 3 mornings a week. Like, I love that guy.
I know he is an amazing person. And that's, like I said, I always knew him, but I got to know him a lot more and got to really appreciate the kind of person that he is. And you can look at people like that and really feel good about, the world. I mean, that sounds a little grandiose, but like seriously, like there are good people.
He is a beam of light for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen his sweet back tat? He has like an entire back piece.
No,
it's so crazy when you see it. Like Cora said something the other day. It was like, I forgot McMillan has this huge back. It's like this gigantic back tattoo. It's sick. You wouldn't think it, would you? Like you look at him, you're like, oh, you're just on, straight laced.
That's awesome. Yeah. So next time I see him, I'm going to be like, all right,
show me.
Yeah. But, I mean, seriously, the people that I've met, we work, so we don't work for the city, but we work with a lot of the city employees, and our 2 facilities guys, they are retired firemen that just, work for the city now. And man, they come over. We thought we had a bat in the depot one time. It turned out to be a bird, but I am terrified of bats. Terrified.
Really? Yeah, I wouldn't want to hang out with one either, honestly. Or any sort of thing that gets in your attic. Michael Astor had to trap a bunch of raccoons in his attic, like babies.
I was terrified. And so we called them over, and they're like, the one guy said to the other one, do we do bats? And he was like, we do now. So they came over, like it was a bird. So, but I mean, they just like took care of it like that and just, and I mean,
but it's nice having the fire station right there by you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, even though they botched the concrete job.
Which concrete? Oh,
the asphalt. It's ridiculous. It's so rough through there. It's like everybody complains about it. I've kind of charted. Yes.
Yeah. That. Well. Okay. We're getting ready to tear up downtown, which is a whole nother story in a minute. But yes, the fire station. That's another like whole department basically that I would have never really gotten to know or gotten to work with. Yeah. And there are a few guys over there. I just met with the chief a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, for like 2 hours talking about them being a part of downtown because they want to be a part of downtown. Like they want to do stuff. They did a ton with Fall Fest. I've talked to him about participating in art walks, other things that they can do. And so it's also really helpful just to have somebody who is like public safety oriented. You know?
Like McMillan, like just having people that's their bag. You don't have to hire security out.
Right. Well, and there's, one time our fire alarm, the battery was going dead and we couldn't figure out which one it was. It was chirping.
They never stopped chirping.
Oh my gosh, it was so insane.
Have you seen that Friends episode about that?
No.
Like Phoebe like takes it down and like goes through like the stuff that we always, and then like just like destroys it and puts it in the trash and it's still chirping. It's just like, but it's like that.
Yeah. So it's like I text my friends at the fire station. I'm like, will you come over and change? And they're like, well, I can. And I said, okay, well, hold on. If it, by the end of the day we don't have someone over here to do it, then I'll do that for you. And I'm like,
like, really, the things we're talking about is community.
Absolutely.
Right? And not politics.
Yes.
Because I feel like probably some of the, whether it's gender roles or whatever the issues you mentioned earlier, a lot of the issues around here are politics oriented. If we would just be like, McMillan or the fire chief or whoever and be like, I just like the fire department, they network with us like that because they never kind of came like, and I have two views on it, like, but they come over and they're like, hey, here's how you could do this a little better.
Right.
We just wanted to check your fire extinguisher and do you need a new one? Like just like giving us free consulting, honestly. Yeah. And, but they kind of reach out to us like, look, we're trying to start doing this with all businesses. And I was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, because of the community side, but then there's this other weird part of me that's like, get your effing oversight out of my life. Because honestly, I don't like, because of my experiences with the city, I don't want you to show up.
Right.
Like, you're not allowed in here without announcing yourself, which code enforcement is never supposed to show up without announcing themselves. Yeah. And we get those kind of petty violations all the time. But that's not community. Like when something goes outside of the legislative process, that's going against community. That's how I feel about it. I feel like that's a lot of people's complaints around here.
I can see that. Now, devil's advocate, and I can say this because I've seen both sides of it, and just kind of like we were talking about earlier, what we have to think about is the fact that they might not realize that you've been screwed over by someone before, so we have to give them the benefit of the doubt of like, well, hey, I'm just trying to help you out, man, and that's like,
in the fire department, people are so great, and it's like, that's why they get free memberships and city employees don't, but that's we do. Like McMillan teaches that class. He teaches for fire department, EMS, vets, or like that 5 a.m. spot has been a good spot for that crowd. I wondered because there's another guy doing that in like Conway area that owns a shooting range. Oh. His name's Ryan Stevens. Him and Rob Heffley have a podcast together. Do you know Rob Heffley?
I've heard his name.
His wife like made $1 billion selling Plexus. Like no joke.
Oh, right.
That's not even an exaggeration. Yes. They made $1 billion.
Okay, yes, I do remember. Yeah,
he's on the podcast, but they have a podcast together. But he was just like, yeah, we do it at this time, man. That's the time that these types of people want to do it. Right. And I was like, we've been trying to do it in like prime time evening spots where I feel like those types of people, if they are able, are probably either on the job or with their families.
Right.
But that 5 a.m. spot we picked up some good people, like Niall from the, I need to have him on the podcast. He's the band director for Dover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's such a good dude. Which I know Chris teaches that crowd quite a bit, actually.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and that's kind of funny because like whenever McMillan's like, hey, and I'm like, you do anything that man wants you to do because he's amazing.
Yeah.
Like he's,
well, and
like I said.
It too, that's like a class, like I want it to be a thing, but like honestly, I don't, it's not, I would do it, but it's like, I'm a community servant. I want that to be part of my service to the community.
Sure.
But it's like, I honestly, I think like it needs to be somebody like Chris, like you're a veteran and other things too. Like you teach these classes to these types of people who are going to get degrees and go be these types of civil servants. So he has like this other, with McMillan, like all this on the job experience, a chief of police. Yeah. Like it's like, those are the types of people you want to be the leader of these groups.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
well, any exciting things you got planned for 2020 with downtown, with your job, with anything, goals?
So you mentioned a little bit of the Levitt grant. We did not get it this year. You've seen Shawshank Redemption, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm Andy Dufresne. Like, I'm applying every year until they finally go, just give them this damn grant because I'm so tired of this woman.
You're going to be writing the letters like all the time.
Yep. Hopefully after the holidays, I'm going to get to talk to them and get some feedback on why we didn't get it.
How did that work? So it was like, we made the top 15.
Yeah.
Is that at one point like number 7 or something?
We were really high up there. At the end when we finished, we were like, I think 11th. maybe 12th. It, was kind of, I was like screenshotting, and, at the end things were changing. So, yeah.
What did we end up with? 15 or something like that?
No,
11 or 12?
Yeah, we were like 11.
Okay, and so they just did they only get to 1, or did they give it to the top 10?
No, they gave it to 17. Yeah.
But we were in the top.
We weren't 1. I know. And that's what I want to know. Why weren't we 1? And so they base it on more than just the votes, but the votes have a lot to do with it. One of the things, and, I've gone over it in my head so many times, like, was it this? Was it that? And that's why I want to know, because it may have been something that we could just, do
different next time.
Yeah, that I just need to, like, emphasize. But one of the things that was pretty awesome that I was happy about is that we had 5 letters of support, which are optional. But I reached out to 5 people in the community. Hope Adair was one. Do you know Hope?
Oh, yeah, she's been on the podcast.
Okay, I was going to say, she needs...
I need to have her back on.
She's another one. Like,
she's a pro. Literally.
Totally. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, her... I love her. But, yeah, she wrote this amazing letter. I had a representative from St. Mary's write one. City councilman
St. Mary's, the hospital, or the wellness center?
The hospital.
Which I guess they're connected somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, they're a big supporter of ours, and just, so, city councilman. I actually had, Dr. Woods wrote one as co-director of
that dude gets talked about on the podcast so much.
He's
like,
awesome, too.
I mean, because honest, like, with Aaron Claire, like, we had, like, a 5-minute, and here we are again. But, like, these people, like, that's, like, Jeff Woods is another guy. He teaches the noon class at the gym. So it's, like, having people... Like all these people we mentioned, Chris McMillan, Jeff Woods, which ironically are all tech employees. But that'll tell you too, like Chris and I were talking a bit about this, like how big for our community tech is. It's like tech in the nuke plant. And that's why everybody's putting so many eggs in the casino basket, is because it's like jobs, economics. Like, yes, there might be some problems, but... Like we have all our eggs in these 2 baskets essentially, and we have some other industry, but no new industries coming.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So interesting thing about that, and I know we weren't really going to get into politics or anything, but I just want to share something that I learned that I think
about the casino.
Well, it relates to that issue. So, over by Kroger, we've got the plasma place.
Yeah.
So, that just kind of like quietly crept in there. As far as I know, there was no protest or opposition to it or anything. Maybe people weren't happy about it, but...
I'll tell you what I knew about it is no one knew what was going in there until it opened.
Okay.
I knew who was doing the work.
Yeah.
And like what construction, because it was Crow Construction.
Okay.
But I couldn't find out what was going in there until like literally they put the sign on the door.
That's interesting.
Because I had... That's an interesting building, right? Not saying I'd like looked at it for like moving the gym in there, but it would have been a pretty interesting spot to have the gym with like all that parking and just so like I like ever since even before we bought our first is just like I always look at commercial real estate.
Sure.
All over
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What was the deal behind all that?
So one of the interesting things about that place, they pay you for your plasma, right? It's not a donation.
I know people that donate there, yeah.
Yes. Well, and this isn't like not all people who go there. And Chris did that whenever he was in the Army, by the way, which
a lot of college students do.
Yeah,
I wonder if that wasn't why they didn't.
They totally they target places where there are college students.
U of A's got one like right by campus.
Yeah. There was one in State College whenever we lived there. So. One of the things that people don't know, though, is that even if you are on drugs, they can still take your plasma because they can filter it out, which seems a little shady and weird to me. But, hey, science is fantastic. So among college students and some of those others, that's another person who's looking for quick money, right?
So they can get more drugs.
So, yeah, so what happens? People go in there, they're on drugs, they're going to take their plasma anyway, stick the needle in their arm, they pass out. What happens then? We have to call our emergency services out, right? So
taxpayer dollars.
But think about that. Everybody is so concerned. I mean, the calls, from my understanding, and I don't know exact numbers, but the calls that our emergency departments were getting, like, doubled. when that place opened.
Well, I mean, shoot, Cora is healthy, but she's type O negative, which is the one that's universal. Is it type O negative?
It's O.
So they harass her all the time to donate, but she also has low iron, right? And she hasn't been struggling with it in the last several years. Like probably the last 5 years she hasn't, but like anemia and low iron.
Right.
But she got to where like the last couple of times she gave blood, it was brutal, and she was just like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
She passed out one time, I believe. But I was telling her, I was paranoid about that because I was like, you having low iron issues, like, I don't think giving blood's a good idea because those people would, because of our blood type, call all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. I hadn't thought about that.
Right. And so everybody is all concerned about the casino. And I'm not saying, again, like that's a whole nother issue. But the thing about it is that, a lot of the problems that people claim the casino is going to cause,
they're already here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Prostitution, drugs, violence. Like, people have spray painted Che Guevara, however you want to pronounce his name. I think it's pronounced Che. But he's South American dictatorial type person. But like, I guarantee you, these kids spray painting it over there by Midtown Express, like, they don't know the atrocities that dude's behind or anything.
Well, again, it goes back to the whole empathy thing. Empathy and education, I mean, people need to understand that your actions have an effect on other people.
Well, and too, like, this has just become a thing too, like what we're talking about with Bonadia, like community perception changes when a bunch of negative things go unchecked.
Absolutely. And that's part of it too, when a bunch of negative things go unchecked. Sometimes, and this is again something that I have learned, sometimes things do happen behind the scenes, but if people don't know about them, it doesn't matter if they're happening or not. You have to, education goes back to that, always learning.
Exactly. I want to develop like an American government course, because I can teach that at Morrilton. I actually got my Housenick notes out the other day, Mrs. Dr. Housenick. But I was just like, oh, this is great. Because I've interspersed all the notes from classes I've taken into my lecture notes.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is how, because like I got out of high school, and really honestly, I was talking with Chris about it yesterday, honestly, college, grossly inequipped with having a grasp on my civic duty.
Absolutely.
And it's like, honestly, the only person that ever did a good job laying it out was Chris. Like, that's it. Because I was telling him, I at one point wanted to be a social studies education licensee.
Right, yeah.
Like, I wanted to be a teacher. And I ended up with all but just a couple of classes for that. And I was like, I'm going to get my master's. But let's say this. I had to have 9 hours to graduate with my history and political science degree in political science.
Right.
So I took like state and local, American government, and like intro to political science or something like that. But I could have got a job as a high school teacher teaching only American government, civics, and econ. I had one econ class. Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Like, you're going to put that in my hands. Like, when I was freaking out when I kind of got an idea about how a bill becomes a law. Like, and it's like, and I was like 24 years old when I figured that out, and it's like, that's education though. Like, it wasn't like, the argument could be made I was dicking off in every single class I ever took, but I really wasn't. Right. Well,
I mean, if you were passing, you should have had at least so that's one of the reasons that I absolutely love the interdisciplinary class that I did this past semester with the Main Street students, with the Main Street thing. So I don't know if you know very much about those, but basically the interdisciplinary class, it's just students from all different disciplines, right? And it's problem-based learning. So they have a problem that they have to solve. My students, their problem was, why don't students come downtown? Why aren't tech students engaged in downtown?
What'd you find out? What'd they say?
Oh my gosh. We learned I probably learned more from that.
That's like a great survey.
Right? Amazing. So one of the things that part of it's just education. They don't know about it. You know, kind of like you were saying about tech being such a big part of our town. I feel like there's kind of been a wall, like, you know, like an invisible wall between the two.
Do you think that the carryover from like the Brown era, or do you think it's still going on?
I have absolutely no idea.
I think really that was going on under him.
I do think that, you know, I do think that there's been some tunnel vision in the past. Like, okay, this is my job, so this is what I do. And, you know, like we were saying, that's not the way I think. I mean, community isn't just, I focus on this one area. You know, community is, hey, how can I work with these partners?
Well, that's exactly like why I was talking about the fire department earlier. It's like, hey, you guys coming in 2 times a year is more important than how I kind of feel about you being here, because I know why you're here, and if I am cool with you being here, we achieve this positive result.
Yeah,
you know, versus like, I can be like, well, you might civil liberties or whatever.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's a way better thing to just let it happen.
By the way, have you ever toured the fire station?
The new one? No.
Yeah.
I did take a video outside of it. I don't know if you saw that.
I don't.
Because every building that gets built by taxpayer dollars, they don't follow their own codes and zoning requirements. So I took a video around every city building, the aquatic center and everything, and I was like, here's what they want to make us do, and here's how they took your tax money and didn't do it here. But that's the like, I walked all the way around it, but I haven't been inside.
I've been on more tours of that place, but I learned something every single time.
That's cool.
It's really cool. It's like actually really amazing. They have this technology that wakes them up, like if they get a call. So, you know, did you ever see Rescue Me with Dennis Leary?
Oh, Derek Rowley, love that. And I watched a few episodes, but I never got it. Chris likes it too. Do you guys watch it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Is it on Netflix or what?
I don't know.
It's on like FX. I don't know.
Yeah,
I should go back and try and watch that.
I mean, but okay. So, you know, it's so funny because all these like cliche things that, you know, happen in a firehouse. But one thing is that, you know, whenever they get a call, it's like this alarm and everything. And that's not, I mean, that's how they used to do it, but they actually did studies. One of the highest rates of killer, I guess, one of the things that, firemen die from is heart issues, cardiac issues. Well, I mean, that's maybe not what we would think, but part of it is because when you get woken up from a deep sleep with an alarm like that, I mean, your adrenaline, like they were saying, like you almost have to like
stimulus response. When I hear that, maybe my friend dies, or maybe I go inhale smoke.
If you're in like a deep sleep, I mean, I've had it happen as a parent where the best alarm clock in the world is, Mom, I just puked in my bed. You're like, okay, I'm up, I'm awake. You know, I mean, like,
it's traumatic. Though waking up that way is traumatic.
Yes, and it is, and that's so. They actually did this study somewhere in Arkansas, where after they would wake up like that, they would have these guys spit in a cup, and they could measure the level of adrenaline and see that, you know, that was part of what was causing these issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so how do they wake them up?
So there's a few different things. First of all, you know, because everybody has their job that they do. So if, you know, the system knows what room you're in. So if you're maybe not, you know, if you're not getting called out, like you're on the ladder truck or whatever, and they don't need that, you won't get woken up at all.
Do you know how many firefighters we have on, like, how there at a time working?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah. Sorry. Like a dozen, 20?
Probably a dozen. Okay. Probably between 8 and 12, I think. Real firefighters.
Yeah.
So do you remember? I'll get that minute. Anyway, so the other thing they do is it's like a gradual thing. So like the lights come on gradually, and it seems like, you know, I know my first thought was like, shouldn't you be getting your ass up out of bed like really
somebody's
fast?
Stuff is burning.
Yeah, like, but it really is counterproductive. Like that's the one guy. He was like, yeah, you'd almost have to like sit on the side like and just catch your breath before you could even like get up and do anything, you know. So
that's real. And I realize it's an emergency situation, but that's the difference. Like cops aren't sleeping on the job.
Nope.
They're working that overnight shift. They're awake the whole time. They don't go sleep at the station. And that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, they work 24 hours on and then 48 off. So, but
I hope we're able to network with the place right by the new Jim Moore, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a station right there. So I'm sure we will.
Oh, yeah.
Literally right across the street. As a matter of fact, maybe McMillan, me and Chris or whoever can go over and talk to him and be like, 5 a.m., guys. Just walk over.
Exactly, right? Well, and that's one of the things that, so they have a gym, in the Central Fire Station, and it's not mandatory, but it's like, because they found,
encouraged.
So, but they have time that they can work out. And so way back when, do you remember it was like last year, last year, there was that thing going around like feeling cute might pull you over later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Remember that meme?
Yeah.
So my assistant, Sarah, and we were trying to promote our Taste of the Valley event. And so we're like, what can we do? And we're like, let's go over to the fire station and get those guys to like do a meme for us, So we did. We went over there and they're like, do you want real firefighters? And I'm like, what's the difference between real firefighters? So fake firefighters, in case you ever need to know this, are the administrators. So we got
that people that are like aged out or
no, I mean it's like the chief, the fire marshal.
Okay, yeah.
So
those people used to be probably career firefighters.
Yeah. So but now they're just in a different position, more of a leadership, I guess. So but anyway, so we got a very lengthy tour while those guys finished working out and getting their shower, and then we got our picture of them in front of the truck.
Yeah.
Feeling cute.
That's funny.
Might buy some Taste of the Valley tickets later. I don't know.
IDK. Yeah. Corey and I have made a few memes like exclusively for the gym, and it's funny. It's funny coming up with like a meme, and just like I love too how like meme culture is taken over. Like then there's been funny memes like Epstein memes are out. Invest in Baby Yoda memes. Like put all your stock over here. But and then too, somebody was talking, and I want to talk with Jeff Woods about this because I'm reading a book on the dark web, but it's like how memes can be a form of subversion and like political divisiveness and everything, and
totally.
how they influence because of what I just said. We're like, oh, memes are great. I'm going to make one. Well, it's like, when that is done to influence an election or whatever, and that's
well, they can be used like propaganda, just like anything else. They really can. So.
It's interesting. A meme is a form of.
I know, and these things just didn't even exist, for the longest time. But some of the things, like I do think, so like that one, it makes things relatable. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen this. Oh, and now I see it happening in my community. Like, oh, that's funny, So that was always one of my big things. And even whenever I was teaching comp, was making things relatable, because pretty much everything in life is connected. And, I felt like, for example, and this is like, I could do a whole nother podcast on this, but I believe that, so the job that I do, what kind of degree would you have for a job like that? I mean, I do everything. Like
public relations, is that a degree? Hospitality?
Well, I mean, it's way beyond that too. So there's not really like a perfect, major that you would do. Maybe one exists, but not to my knowledge. But being in the humanities, like, oh my gosh, I have learned so much. And that's what I was saying. Like, so, doing like literary theory. Well, I kind of learned to analyze things from different points of view, and so I can look at a situation and say, oh, well, I could do this or I could do that, or, I mean, there's just different things like that. And then obviously like grant writing. And that's one of the things like,
do you like grant writing?
I love grant writing. I love it. And
I wish that was like a part of my job.
Yes.
But like, it's because it's not, I'm like, I don't have time to do that.
Right?
Can I get somebody to do it for me? And like, we really have never really found anybody to do it for us.
Yeah. Well, so, I know.
Because like, I mean, who teaches a class on grant writing? Larry MacArthur. So like I know tons of people that have knowledge, but it's just like it's difficult to appropriate resources, because like I'm like Monday through Thursday is 12-hour day for me, and Friday's a little shorter, but
not much.
By the time I get off, like, well, I'll see you guys on Monday.
Right.
Reemerge.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would love to go back and tell my students like, so you don't think you ever have to write? Look at this, because I'm like, that's totally what that is. Persuasive writing, argumentative writing. That's what we used to teach that, that's what they get taught. And that's what grant writing is basically.
Well, think about this too. I mean, I know like writing on I don't think I've read some studies recently. They're like breaking down the differences in writing with your hand. Yes. Versus typing.
Absolutely.
And it kind of freaked me out, honestly, because I was just like, but then anchor point, like I was on the writing it with your hand train because I was like, there's like 3 college classes that I took on like an Acer, like a little bitty.
Yeah.
And I don't remember more things from those classes. And I'm just like, like World War II, Georgina. I can remember a lot about World War II, but I'm like, I wonder that's because I typed my notes. But in your mind, you're like, I'm going to get more of what Dr. Duncan says.
Right.
I'm writing her whole sentences.
Right.
But you're not retaining.
No.
It's not going in the same way. I've wondered about that on audiobooks. I've been listening to audiobooks because I have poor reading comprehension. I tell people about it all the time. But like my listening comprehension is... For hours, I can listen and I can read for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, I got strength over here. Yeah, there's weakness over here. But the strength. Let's focus on that.
Yeah. And so, it's kind of funny. Whenever I had to take my comprehensive exams for my master's, what I did, I just rewrote notes constantly. I mean, I had a giant binder full of graph paper and I just kept writing things. And I mean, some of it was like, things that I just looked up and found. Some of it was, was just what I needed to know. And I just hand wrote those notes over and over again. And I mean, it's true.
Just anchored to your memory?
Yeah. It totally, you retain so much more. And part of my thing is like, so, even like in jiu-jitsu, when you practice things over and over and certain things become muscle memory.
It's like your times tables.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, would you like how you memorize your times tables, but you derive the conceptual through the memorization?
Yeah. And so when you're writing, like your brain, you're not just hitting a key, you're forming a letter and your brain is like imprinting that, I'm sure that's not the right word, but.
Well, no, I mean, that is, I call them anchors to memory. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's like a little, like you put a pin in it, like on a map with like a bunch of it.
Totally. I can't tell you the last sentence I typed. I don't know it. I could probably tell you that I can tell you for sure the last thing that I wrote, I was making a to-do list for today, last night.
Was podcast on the list?
It was on the list. It was on the list.
My notes on my phone are big time. That's like, honestly, that's another thing. Short front form.
Yeah.
I noticed being a little different. Like when I'm doing lists to checklists, and that may too be though because I pull it up multiple times a day.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to. That's not something that you want to keep in your brain for the rest of your life either. You just want to keep it there long enough till you get it done, and then.
That's another good point.
So, I mean, and technology has its place. I know there are some people that are, stronger typists than writers, so that's fine.
Too, I think just writing takes practice too. Like, I have my students, I'm like, yeah, okay, we did 30 minutes of talking about the Mexican-American War. Go ahead and turn your notes into 3 paragraphs. Mm-hmm. And, get in the habit of doing that. That's your get out of class card today. Like, because so many times we're typing and not writing, or we're just taking notes and not writing. And I'm like, well, you guys are going to write this many essays and a couple of papers. Like, this is helping you for that.
That's the thing too. Like, so if you look back at your notes, they might not make sense to you, but if you take them and, not long after you've written them and actually turn them into something that makes sense, like you're talking about, it's going to help you a lot more.
What I did is like a strategy is I developed like my US 1 class, and then I went back and interspersed my US 1 notes, and then I went back and started like, here's what DeBlack said about Reconstruction broadly. Here's what Dr. Moses started US 2 with Reconstruction. Why end with I could move some of this over.
Right.
And it just really broadened. I'd have a couple pages on Reconstruction, then it like doing just that moved it to like 9 pages.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay.
Isn't it amazing how those people influence you? Like, seriously, like I was saying, you know, Dr. Claire is like my idol, but you know, there's so many others that I look at and I think about, and even like back from when I did my undergrad, which was a long time ago.
And they didn't have to.
I mean,
they that's what's great. This has come up recently, like last couple episodes, but like these people don't have to do that, but they do. Like Jeff Witt said, he didn't have to still be involved in my life. He doesn't have to still be answering my text messages, but he does, and he is. And like when he's like said he's going to get back into teaching, I was like, oh great. Like the first thing I thought is you get to do for me for more people, because that's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was when I heard that, I was like, man, that stinks, because he's so good at what he was doing and he was an awesome dean. You know, I heard great things about him, but exactly what you said, you know, he's also an awesome teacher. And so, and you know, like I said, you don't go get a PhD in history to be an administrator.
Well, and
you know, you want to.
I've often wondered about like why he did that, but then at the same time, it's like why I serve on certain committees, or it's just to gain like that is to be of service, right? Yes. Like it's like, yeah, he could be a teacher the whole time, and that would be a great service to a lot of people. But it's like the type of guy that he is a leader. Yeah. He can be a great leader, and having experience in leadership, I just think now that he's back in teaching, having all that also, it's like, dude, could you even have upped the game anymore?
I know. Well, and that's just it. It kind of goes back to that always learning thing. Like, you know, when you get to the level that he's at, I'm sure it's hard to learn things still, but you know, doing a different position, then you're going to learn. You know, now he knows a lot more about how things work at the university, and you know, so it's like you can take that and you know, that experience.
Let that guide your.
Yeah. I mean, that's and you know, there is something to working with students. So when I was doing my adjuncting part-time jobs, I had 4 part-time jobs at the same time, by the way.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was insane. And I made, I don't even know how many hours I worked, but I definitely made about half as much money as I do now. Not that I make a whole lot now, but that's fine. I'm happy. But so I was a substitute teacher, and I made an effort to go to every grade and every school whenever they called me. You know, like I'd be like, oh, do you have anything at the high school? You know, or sometimes they'd be like, we have a preschool. And I'm like, nope, absolutely not going to a preschool, you know, or just I tried to really experience it. And I was originally a secondary education English major, like, again, way back when. I am so glad that I'm not a high school English teacher.
You know what's crazy is, and I don't get the feeling that it's like this at Tech or at UCA, but like Morrilton is very much becoming like a high school. Like the stuff that
there's a lot of high school students there.
The stuff that they're making us do, and I don't know like why, but nobody else I talk to that's a instructor, professor, and like a lot of the faculty, like, well, you got to look at other community colleges. It's like, no, like they say we do everything like U of A, but we don't.
Right.
Like the big thing that came up in our faculty senate meeting was they say that, but we started school 3 weeks before U of A. 3 weeks. Like I was giving Wednesday of week 3, I was giving my first test.
Oh my gosh.
And that was U of A's first day.
Yeah.
And like that awareness is a morale killer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, that's one of the reasons like I love this Main Street class that I did, because, and I bragged on those kids when they did their presentation. I was so proud of them. Like, that's the end of the class. They do a presentation. That's basically like their final. And I mean, the mayor was there, you know, Sam Strassner was there, just a bunch of people from Tech, from the community. I was so proud of them. And I said, you know, everybody has this whole perception, and you see it, I'm sure. And I mean, it is true in some cases, but you know, oh, these kids are always on their phone. And I said, these kids right here, like, they're amazing. And they care. Like, they actually care. They're actually doing something. Like, I never had to get on to them about anything. And that was the thing. That's what I don't miss about, like, my, you know, Comp 1 classes. Because, I mean, I'd have kids falling asleep. And it's like...
I experienced a minor amount of that but for the most part, like, it is literally like in the classroom is where I'm like, yeah, you know, and then I'm like, oh, you're failing the test. Like, it doesn't, like, people being on their phone and sleeping, like, because it's rare. It doesn't bother me. But, and I wonder if, like, I've thought about this too. I wonder if it's history, because I feel like maybe with math and English, it's like you have to take notes in history. Yes, whereas like you kind of have to read the story in comp or buy the notes or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But you can get by, like I noticed that when I was a student, it's like taking notes for some classes was a different bag. Like you would go in and like you've been taking all these history notes and you're like, science was that way too. You take a lot of science notes, but some of the other classes like English and math particularly, I didn't find myself. Now world lit, I took lots of notes.
Yeah.
And like when I go observe Booty's class, I'm just like, dude, I didn't know I love this stuff. I forgot. This is great.
Oh my gosh. That's one thing I miss working with him.
Oh man.
Because he's an amazing person, and I will tell you what, I mean, he's so passionate about what he does, and that's really, I mean, I will never forget, like, I think I had a week under my belt and he was like, do you still like it? And I was like, I love it. And I mean, at least with college kids, you know, it's a different mindset. I mean, I know what you're saying about, you know, but I could never teach high school, like, ever.
I don't think I could either.
But I do. And that's one of the things, like, I was really glad to be able to do that Main Street class. And I hope I'll get to do stuff like that with tech in the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to have an intern in the spring, and I'm hoping to be able to do that kind of stuff more, because I want to still work with that demographic. Like, I want to work with students.
We're about to be doing more of that, because Jamie, who owned Back to Basics, has always had an intern for his fitness center portion of his gym. So he's going to put us into some contact with some people at, I guess it's McKeever, that's where the wellness programs, networking with, I guess it's the SGA. We're going to start doing like a drop-in. So like for the Zumba, yoga, and fitness kickboxing, a super cheap drop-in rate where like anybody that's a tech student is like going to be like a $5 just.
Right.
Whereas, like, you don't have to pay a membership, just $5 every time you come in.
Right.
So, but like some other places in town like do that. I think one of the like Soul to Soul or St. Mary's. Like, there's some different places that have, and it's through. You just get set up through the Student Government Association. I guess so. Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, so, an intern will be a game changer for you, right?
I'm super excited. So my intern is Kara Dickens. She was Miss Tech.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yes. And she was one of my students.
Oh, yeah. That's like, great.
I am stoked to have her.
Cora, she did so good in the Miss Tech pageant, right? She got best vocal talent, Miss Congeniality, like third runner up or something like that. Yeah. And then she won like a scholarship. I mean, it was a big deal at the time. I was just, and it blew me away. She did so well.
Yeah.
But that looks good on a resume.
It really does. And I mean, I don't know what her history is or how she did it, but I'll tell you what, when she was doing the presentation, I could tell she was like head and shoulders above people, like just in her mannerisms and the way that she talked. And I'm like, I don't know if that's from doing a pageant or
like practicing for that.
Yeah, but she was just so good.
Isn't it that it seems to be that's sort of like a lost art. Like,
absolutely.
I tell people this all the time. If I didn't have this podcast, I would talk to way fewer people. Like I try and like, because the gym is so busy when because if I'm coming in for Nogi at 5:30, like Tuesday, Thursday, I'm not there. So I get there before it gets super busy on Tuesday, Thursday, but on Monday, Wednesday, I come in where it's like peak, and it's like. Oh my God, there's so many people in here, and it's like a stressful environment to walk into. But and then it's too like everybody wants to talk to you, and it's like that's kind of why I don't come in until that time. It's like, I'll just come teach the Nogi class, guys, and then we're gonna do kickboxing. If you're in the class, I'll talk to you a lot.
Right.
But people don't have conversations. They don't socialize, and I feel like it's like a skill you guys sharpen.
Yeah.
At the listening and everything, and I'm back and forth on this, you know, because honestly, like some of the most successful people that I follow, and I'm really not big on self-help stuff anymore, but like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, he's like, yeah, I'm giving my kids more screen time. It's like, that's the world they're going to live in. And you saying for them not to have screen time, that's because more of your life than not, the internet wasn't a thing.
Right.
And it's just like, that's a perspective that has to be taken into account. Most of the people that are saying that, and there is some data, I have seen some studies, but it's like, I've also seen some studies like children as young as age 2. And I'm like, how much screen time can a 2-year-old actually consciously engage in?
Right.
How about you just stop sticking the tablet in front of their face?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, they're not asking for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like some of that stuff, I'm just like, I feel like it's like a reefer madness type of thing.
Yeah,
like where they're just
totally.
But I feel like if we demonize it, I feel like there's a limit that should be put on it. But it's just like, some people are just so negative about it. Yeah. And I'm like, this is guys, this ain't going anywhere.
Nope. And it has advantages. I mean, it does.
It does. Well, let's just say like with Paige, like she's still doing robotics.
Yeah.
Like that's like one's going to help the other. Like technology.
Sure.
Technology. Like, right. It's like I feel like it's all in the same tool chest.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's also like the things I worry about, and I have been talking this about people, is like, let's say Paige gets an Instagram account or something.
Yeah.
And then there's a unsolicited message in her inbox. Like, oh, hey, I just saw you post that picture in your purple gi.
Yeah.
How old are you? Like me seeing stuff like that freaks me out. Mm-hmm. Like Corey and I like family planning mode and stuff. I'm just like,
it is scary as hell. So, she actually had Snapchat on her phone, and she used it to like with my with my niece and my sister, and with family members, like but then I noticed I do look at it every once in a while. I look at her phone, and she tells me that nobody else does that. Nobody else's parents do that. And I said, bullshit. Everybody else's parents do that. They just might not know.
Some people are going to have a software program where you don't even know about it.
Yes. So anyway, I looked, and there were people on there that she didn't know. And I'm like, why? What? Who are what? Like, and they're just, how people are. Like, if you're playing a game or something, they just send requests. And I said, no, you're not. You cannot be friends with people you do not know, because who knows? And it's so hard to try and like make that impression on a kid that there are a lot of really terrible people out there. Like, there are
think you're being paranoid.
And I don't want to scare the daylights out of her, because there's a lot of great people out there too. But at the same time, like, just be smart. And she got really upset. I told her she had to delete those people, and she could continue to get in touch with my aunt or my sister, and she deleted the whole app. And afterwards, I think she got it. But it's a scary time.
I have no other than just talking to people. I don't know how I'm gonna navigate that.
You just
it's that those are the things that I'm worried about. Yeah. It's not like, oh man, my kid was on the tablet for 2 hours. Now they're probably going to have a mental illness when they grow up. But that's the type of articles that are being pushed. There
was, I think it was like a granola bar company or something that put out that commercial about like, oh, this is what it was like. We went outside, and then at the end, it's like the kid, on his phone or whatever. And somebody you should have on is Emily Young.
Yes.
Yeah, she's awesome. And
Cora said that yesterday.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she had posted that, and she was like, how do you know? Maybe the kid is looking up a YouTube video on how to make cookies, because that was like one of the things that they showed, like, making cookies with your grandma. Like, kids don't do this anymore. Maybe he was looking up a YouTube video about that. Maybe he was looking up, you can't just go, oh, well, they're just staring at their phone, and they're just like,
what I'm doing when I'm staring at my phone? Learning tons of stuff, reading tons of articles, listening to audiobooks.
I mean, sometimes I'm just scrolling through Facebook.
Okay, I do that.
I'm not gonna lie. But I have also met local people that I've gotten to know through Facebook. And they're real people. Like, I've met them in real life and everything too, but I've gotten to know them a lot better
Well, like, I was thinking about this. Started recollecting all the Star Wars toys from when I was a kid. But, like, okay, so when I was a kid, at a certain time, like, the internet had just come out. And, like, I always remember the Star Wars Fan Club magazine, right? But that was, like the mail-ins and, like that's how you got things, right? Like, there was no, like, now I'm just like, oh, I just go to JediBusiness.com. It tells me the entire collection.
Yeah.
Like, but, like, before you'd be like, okay, this Walmart is only getting these action figures, but my friend has Grand Moff Tarkin and I don't. Where did he get Grand Moff Tarkin? And, like, it would be a mystery. Now I just get on eBay and get Grand Moff Tarkin for like $5. It's not a big deal. But, like, the ability to do that kind of stuff, like, it is increasing our time. Like, it's just like, I can just know what all the figures were. I don't have to guess. I don't have to wait. I don't have to wonder or get this mail-in magazine that, like, I got to collect 28 magazines to figure it out. But, like, that kind of stuff has been a game changer on, like, you can, like, oh man, I don't know how to make cookies, but there's, like, tying a tie, stuff like that, right? Stuff that you just you need an instructional. I go to YouTube for everything. Painting, trim, or anything I'm going to do that's outside of my lane. Mm-hmm. Even this is in my lane now, but I gotta go Jedi Business.
Yeah.
Speeder bike.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me a little bit sad, I'll admit, because I remember when I was a kid and my mom, she'd be trying to think of, like, who sang a certain song. She'd be like, oh man, who sang that song, and she'd be thinking and then she'd call her brother on the phone and she'd be like, who was that, and they'd be thinking and then of course it comes to you like an hour later, you're like, oh, so that makes me sad a little bit, but you always do have the choice.
Yes, exactly. It. I like groups. Like, I'm a member of, like, a widespread panic group called Panic Stream, and somewhat I just got added by somebody to this Tool fan group, which is super weird, but I like watching what they post, and I'll comment every now and then. But it's like getting to, like, what I was saying with, like, the Star Wars community. Like, I get to engage, like, with the broader fan base or whatever it is, whereas that just wasn't possible before. It would have to be like, hey, my buddy Heston, like, where did you get that? Remember the Cantina band? Like, I've never seen that. I got it from the mail-in magazine, dude. But it's like, where? Oh, I didn't see which issue. Where it's like now, it's like you can go to a forum, and there's always been forums for the most part online, but like that was earlier. But now there are these evolved social media groups, and I mean, I found artwork from concerts I didn't buy posters at that, like, I wanted to in these groups, and I bought Colby's Christmas present from like, I'd been searching for this print forever.
Yeah.
And a guy had like half a dozen of them. I bought me and Colby both one.
Yeah.
But we'd both been looking for it for like a year. Yeah. And somebody's rambling like, hey, I got a bunch of these to get rid of. And I was just like,
it's making connections. Connections.
These are the perks. There's a lot of bad, negative, evil stuff on the internet. Sure. But it's like, that's the world we live in.
Another person you need to have on sometime is Amber Roberts.
Who's that?
So she has Amber Lane Photography.
Where are they? I've heard of them.
Well, they're downtown. So she used to be on Commerce Street, and now I think her address is going to be Boulder. She's moving.
Is she that skinny 2-story building?
She
over
was.
By Fat Daddy?
No, not by Fat Daddy's. She was right across from like the beauty college.
Oh, okay, yeah,
right down from Old Bank, but
Olsen's is going out right there.
Yeah. So,
well, they're not nice people, so we're happy about it. But anyway.
So she has this. She does boudoir photography, maternity photography, right?
Oh, wow.
And she does some other stuff too sometimes. Like she did mother-daughter pictures with me and the girls. And
is that her little alley? Did she set up that alley where everybody takes pictures?
Yeah, that's Kurt Jones. He has the alley. But she has this Facebook group called Amber's Gems, and it's only women. You have to be over 18. And it is like this safe place. Like, it is so amazing that she has built this. I mean, there's women from like all over the place, but people will just post really positive things. you know, and they totally build each other up. I mean, and I know myself, like I go on there and if it's selfie Saturday, even if I don't post a selfie, like I see people on there that I know and I'm like, damn, you know, I'm like, you're looking good, or, you know, and it's like, that's what it's about. It's just, you know, empowering women, empowering people. I mean, in this case, it's women, but it's like, I mean, she has this community it's just grown. It's like this huge thing. It's amazing. And there's some of these people that, you know, that's kind of how they interact. Like you might not really meet them in person. Some of them you do.
Well, I was thinking about stuff like that the other day. It's like, what if that didn't exist for somebody who's involved with it?
Yeah.
Like, what if they never did anything?
Right.
Like, what if they just became a homebody?
Yeah.
And not speaking bad about that or anything, but like, what if that was the means and the conduit in which they were able to connect with a community?
Yeah. Totally. That's what I mean, you know, and some people, not everybody has the time or the means to be able to, you know, or maybe they just are anxious. Maybe they don't feel comfortable in social situations. I mean, some people feel more comfortable online.
That too.
You know, I mean, there's so many different aspects of it. There just are.
There is. And I think that honestly, like, I mean, it's been my interpretation that the anxiety that comes from like what people are saying is actually probably from like over social, like we're getting that socialization online,
right?
And it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like you get to where you're scrolling on your Facebook and it's a lot. You're always socializing in that way, even though you're not with the person like right now.
Right.
I mean, we're here talking. But we could very easily be having this conversation in Facebook Messenger.
Sure.
And it's not a lot different, right? I mean, yeah, we wouldn't be recording it and stuff, yeah. but in terms of like how we're going to like, if I message you and say, Danielle, what do you think about online communities?
Yeah.
We talk back and forth about it a little bit. It would be the same result.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get that like kind of like, oh yeah, I was with the person. But some people are like, oh, being with the person stresses me out. Right. And I wonder if it's not because of too much online socialization, but I don't know.
It could be. I mean, there's just so many, I don't know, there's so many different things, and we know so much more now that I know, you know, the internet and social media gets blamed for a lot, but sometimes I don't think it's necessarily because of that. It's just because that's something new that all of a sudden we can look at and blame things on, you know. And all I know is that when I cannot sleep at 3 a.m., Google is my best friend.
You just go learn stuff?
So we have this kind of running joke in our house that, you know, were you up Googling how tall is Jesus last night? Yeah, I was. And by the way, they believe he was probably about 5'5".
That's kind of short.
Yeah, it is kind of short. I know. But, and I mean, there's no way to know for sure. But just like, you know, weird shit that comes in your head. And it's like I'm like, can cats get sunburned? Yeah, look it up on Google. They can, you know? I mean, just all these things. It's kind of like you were saying, like, it's like, whoa, that kind of blows your mind.
Yeah, you have more light bulb moments.
Yeah.
You have access. And some people argue that that's bad. Like you're supposed to, like, you can learn too much too fast.
But I'm not going to, like, read a book about cats to learn if cats can. I mean, yeah, I'm going to read, you know, but I'm not going to like seek out like that information in like an encyclopedia or something, you know? I mean, there are some things, yes.
Look how far we've come since like my dad had the set, you know?
Yes, we did too growing up. I mean, so yeah, I'm not going to like, I mean, I read every single day. And I'm still going to do that, but I'm probably not going to find a book about can cats get sunburned.
Well, and how many like trivial things do we pass over like that in books that we're like, I didn't know that. Yeah. But like I was talking with my brother-in-law about this right before we podcasted, but did you know the Navy invented the dark web?
I did not know that.
Okay, and here's the disturbing part about that. The U.S. Navy invented it for a means. So like if we had somebody who was in intelligence traveling, they're at a hotel in California, but they're normally in Virginia, that they could not have to get on the hotel's network. Right. So they basically created this a software program like Chrome or Mozilla called Tor. Mm-hmm. Well, then it was from there that like the whole dark web infrastructure was built. And now it is a tax subsidized thing. Like it's paid for with tax money, but there are like drugs, like heroin, cocaine, child pornography, all of these horrible things. And it is literally 100% subsidized by United States taxpaying dollars. And like, but you hear about that. Everybody's kind of heard about the dark web, but and you've heard about the things on it. But when you hear that the United States Navy, like, you're like, whoa,
yeah.
But like those types of moments, like, it's like that was the most, like, the biggest thing in the whole book that I read. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe the Navy's behind this and we pay for it, But it's just like that. The trivial little takeaways, you can get those. Very precise.
Totally.
I like joking with my students that I'm like, yes, here we are back in Mesopotamia, Western Asia Minor, and we're going to be talking about Jesus, more specifically Asian Jesus, because we're on the Asian continent. Jesus was Asian. And then I start my lecture on Christianity. But they're just like, because I give a geography lesson, but like literally Jesus is on the very far left side of the Asian continent. Nobody thinks about the Middle East as being on the Asian continent.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, oh, it's a Middle East.
Yeah, it's just in the middle there.
Yeah, and I'm like, the middle of what? And I'm like,
the East.
Yes, we're Africa and Europe and. But anyway, it's funny.
Yeah. So, well, now you can also add that Jesus was
5 foot, probably 5'5".
That's what they believe.
Yeah, I mean, not to be stereotypical, but are people? What is the average height of people from the Middle East now?
I don't know.
They say, I've heard that that's just like a racist thing, but I've heard many times that Asian people are statistically shorter across most of the continent.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's if that's true or not.
Yeah, and I mean there are genetic differences. I mean, we talk about like race and everything, and we're all people, but there are genetic differences. There are some diseases that certain races are more prone to and things like that. I mean, we are physically different, and so having different attributes like that, I mean, yeah, it's crazy how much globalization shakes all that up and just dumps it back out. I know, right? It's fascinating. It really is. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I feel like this has been great. I mean, I can talk for days. Thanks for coming over. I'm so sorry I had to cancel on you that one time. It was just like I forget what was going on, but it was a busy day, and I was kind of getting the vibe. I really need to hang out with Cora that day. Where I kind of put that in the text. Yeah. But I really appreciate you coming on, good. And we'll do it again. Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Because there's I really feel like I know a lot more about what you do now. See that? Well, last thing. I would say, before we wrap it up, do you feel like this has been good for your health? Like working in this job? Oh, absolutely. Like you look healthier. Well, not saying you looked unhealthy, but no. Like you almost have like a little bit of a glow or whatever. I do. I mean, it's amazing whenever you love what you do. It really is. It is. And like I said, I get to connect with really awesome people, which is just increases, Yeah. Your happiness, really. So, I mean, there's still stressful times, but I know. And I do only things I love, and I get stressed out a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's because you care. That's exactly it. And so, not to get too far off the beaten path here, but the last event that I had a confrontation with somebody downtown, and I mean, they were like yelling at me, and and it was. And I was like so stressed out, and I'd gone in my office to kind of like collect myself for a minute, and then two amazing people that I've met through my job, they came by and they're like, oh hey, and I mean they're giving me hugs, and that makes me feel really, that right there, it's like okay. And while we're standing there, and I'm just telling them like, oh yeah, this person just and then this lady walks by and she's like, oh hey, you're doing a fantastic job, this is so wonderful, and I'm like, that's why I do it. It's so that easy to the noise and like the negativity or whatever, but it's like there's way more good going on inside of like our gym and inside and in stuff that we're involved with than there is bad. Yeah, there's bad, and it's hard not to focus on it, and it's easy to let it ruin your mental health. It really is. But that's been like that's one thing I've just been commenting about more and more about people. And I think maybe I just like think about it more because I like have a career sort of job now, and like I have these. Job. Yeah, I have. Even though it's like I have these weird
pressures that I never had before, and it's very, I don't know. It's interesting.
It is.
You know,
it is.
You work there.
It is. But yes, I did. Someday maybe I'll be back. That's my retirement plan, to teach.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna work there as long as I can, really. But like, honestly, talking with like Reader and Neil Harrington and others that are like, they only have master's degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys are tenured professors.
I know.
Like, that blows my mind. Mm-hmm. But you know, honestly, if I get a lot of teaching experience, and getting a PhD is not completely out of my wheelhouse. I would love to do that. I almost wish I would have done it, but I'm not just now to the point where I'm like, man, I really like to get a PhD for the first time. I mean, I've been thinking this for about a year, but getting my master's and all that, I could not keep going.
No way. And so I always tell myself, because that's not out of the realm of possibility for me either. And part of it, I mean, when I got my master's, I was like, I'm just doing this for fun. I mean, I really was just doing it to learn. I didn't think I was ever going to use it, because I had a full-time job at the time, and I had no reason to think I wasn't. Yeah. But I call it the Dr. Neil plan. Miss that woman. But, you know, she was, like 60 when she got her PhD?
She tried to convince me to go to University of Hawaii.
I mean, it's never too late. It's never too late.
It's not, yeah.
And she was happy, and she did what she loved, and, you know, I mean, yeah. So I'm like, I still have a few years before.
We do. We have time, and it's not a race, and I feel like you have to do things, and you're ready to do them. And that's just been kind of like what I'm telling myself right now.
I feel like whenever, you know, there were quite a few years between when I got my undergrad and I got my master's, and I feel like I approached my master's with a whole different mindset and a whole different set of experiences, and I just brought more to the, you know, it was such a richer experience for me. Like, I learned so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would have taken away as much as I did if I had been, like, you know, a 20-year-old kid or whatever.
Oh, and timing is...
Yeah.
That's why Dr. Claire was blowing my mind yesterday, I guess yesterday, the day before, whenever we talked. Yeah. Just like her trajectory of, like, the schools she went to, getting her PhD, getting married along the way, having 2 kids. I was just like, you're blowing my mind. Like, that was your whole story and David's whole story. And
yeah. And you know what's really funny? If you talk to her... I remember, so when I was getting my master's, they did like a symposium thing, you know, where you could submit a paper and read it or whatever. And I remember I got chosen, and so I got to do that. And I remember saying to her something like, oh, man, someday when I don't get nervous or something. And she's like, you always do. And I'm like, wait a minute, you, badass Claire, you get nervous? Like, she's like, yeah.
Everybody suffers from like an imposter syndrome. You know, like, oh, I can't be on the podcast because I don't have anything to say, or I can't be this professor because I just got my PhD. Like, I noticed that, like, everybody that does everything, like, I feel that way with this podcast. I'm like, why am I podcasting? Because I want to. But some people will, like, they would never do, like, they'll never be a stand-up comedian. They'll never start blowing glass or whatever. Yeah. Because they don't feel like, even though they would probably be successful, they're I'm not. That's not me.
But yeah, everybody. I mean, there are so many things in my life that I have had to get, like, a little nudged. This job. You know, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to, you know, and Chris was
Cora had to fill out my application. Yeah. Like, she's like, yeah, you need to go pay off your student loans. Let's go. Come on.
Like, he's like, do it. You need to do it. And now, I mean, you know, one of our board members, he's like, it's like you were made for this. Like,
timing.
Like,
timing is everything. You just got into it at the right time.
It really is. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we will definitely have to have you back on.
Yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time, because I know you have children and Chris, and
I need to get out of the house.
It's a balancing act. Yeah, that's what Kristen yesterday was like. I was like, hey, would you be interested in come on my podcast? Like, when would be some good days and times? She's like, what about today? I was like, impromptu podcast. Let's do it.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're signing off. Thanks again.
All right.
What did you think? Was it everything you hoped for?